Do you ever get our Bob Marley lookalike to sign up for the PM?
Oh, no.
Ashley?
Now I know who you're talking about. Yeah. Took me a minute.
Who is it?
Okay. That's time to talk right now.
You want me to say your last name or no? It's got the other street. We can talk about that a little bit. I'll throw it in. Good afternoon. You're listening to A Path to Wellness on rhinoonair.com, WSPF-DB.com. And I'm Dr. Christopher Jackson, PhD, DOM, Florida. And the show is named after my practice, A Path to Wellness, which is basically a statement of my philosophy, which is about helping people on a path to wellness, and personal philosophy too. I can boast to have lost about around 20 pounds in the last year myself, and that's just treating myself, obviously. But I've had patients with much more accelerated results as far as weight loss goes, just as an example. Anyway, if you want to reach us at any time here at the show, what is that number, Anne-Marie? If you want to call in.
Your assistant, Vanna White.
Yeah, can you read it off?
I don't know it by heart either. 727
727
873
873
7627.
7627. So you can call in and ask any questions or these kinds of things if you'd like. All right, and if you would like to connect with our practice, it's on the web. It's aptw.net, short for A Path to Wellness, and that's .net, not .com, .net. So aptw.net. And our practice phone number is 727-329-9637. Okay, so give you lots of information there. I'll throw it back at you again toward the end of the show. But for right now, what I'd like to do is introduce my guest today, which is our local artist extraordinaire, Marc Levasseur. And I like how French that sounds, Levasseur.
You say it right. A lot of people don't get it right. They really butcher it. So.
Oh, yeah.
Marc Levasseur, you know.
Oh, my God. That's horrible.
I hear that a lot. So.
That's horrible.
You said it really nice.
Thank you. Merci. So, Marc, I guess what we're going to do is kind of a mock-up intake, right? Just to give folks kind of an idea of how things might be a little different with the kind of intake that we do at A Path to Wellness, as opposed to, you know, going and seeing your doc who says, okay, what's wrong? You know, and says, okay, how long's it been going on or something? And okay, here's your script. See ya.
Right.
Right.
So they do. Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, so let's talk about just day to day, anything specific that you're experiencing that you're having issues with.
Well,
like talk about.
The one thing I get concerned about is, and it happens every night, the burning of the feet at night when I sleep. Not right now, they ache, but they don't burn.
Mm-hmm.
They burn at night really bad, to where it only makes me a little bit nauseous. It hurts. It's
really
painful.
Okay.
Recently, now it's my hands that is getting that way with my hands. But years ago, I would say 6 years ago, I thought I had neuropathy, and I went to a neurologist and so forth. And it turns out that I have rheumatoid arthritis. I don't take anything for it now. I did at one time, and it seemed to help a little bit, but right now I don't have health insurance, so I don't really bother with it. So I think, the medication probably did help a little bit, and it might be rheumatoid arthritis. It could be something else, but.
So they did blood work to test that you had.
This was probably 7 years ago.
And there are specific tests on that. So if they said absolutely, then that's what you have, because there's something called the rheumatoid factor, which if you show positive, that's one of the indicators. And then there's something called sedimentation rate, which if it shows high is an indicator of
And I always wonder why older people would do this stuff with their hands.
right.
And I do that sometimes now. Like, and I'm an artist too, so
Yeah, that makes
my
it
hands,
difficult.
I'm always using my hands to brush. And when I paint, I don't do this little. I move my hand fast to make things blend. I'm kind of a loose painter, so maybe with that, I mean, with the rheumatoid arthritis added together, but I know I'm an artist and I use my hands a lot, but I'm more concerned about my feet than my hands because that's what is most painful. And then going on to something else, I have a little bit of anxiety.
Okay.
Especially like recently, this strange pain up in my left hand chest.
Do you feel like fluttering or?
Fluttering sometimes, but this weird pain. Like the other day, I was like, "What the heck is that?" You know, it's like in tiny tingles on my left hand side of my face. So a lot of weird issues that I pay attention to, but I don't do much about. Anything about it. So.
Just side note, if you go to our website aptw.net and look at the testimonial. One of the this is about 3 years ago, I believe, who had rheumatoid arthritis. Notice I said had. Rheumatoid arthritis was diagnosed. Rheumatoid arthritic. And she came to me. She didn't want to be on all the drugs like methotrexate and so on. And I helped her with a natural program, which she followed and still follows for the most part. She kind of, what I hear, the rumors are that maybe there's a little bit of leeway in her strictness about it nowadays because she's getting used to feeling so good. So
that's awesome.
There you go. That's an example.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm sure weight has a part of it.
Okay.
So I'm overweight,
so. Okay. Yeah, that could be part of it. And if you, even with the diagnosis of rheumatoid arthritis, if you have, it may not be peripheral neuropathy, as in diabetic peripheral neuropathy, although you may have a glucose regulation issue, right?
And I have a B12 deficiency too. So
okay. Well, that's important.
I was diagnosed with that too. So
that's very important. Yeah, because the B12 is very important to your neurology. Very important. Yeah, and to your muscles. So that's something to pay attention to for sure.
Yeah.
So, okay. So it sounds, because it's attached to being at night, it sounds metabolic to a certain extent.
Which means?
Means like your metabolism slows at night because you're at rest.
Okay.
Yeah. And because it's more prominent when your metabolism is low, there's a metabolic link there. So we have to kind of figure that out.
For a while there, I was like, oh, gosh, do I have gout or something? I don't think it's gout. Gout would be, I hear your feet like they're hot and things like that.
Not so much, but there's more pain. Yeah, and that's usually from uric acid. That's where the gout is stemming from. And there are drugs to deal with that, but you can certainly just affect it by improving your diet.
The other thing that scares me, and it's kind of personal, I have to use the restroom urinate probably, I would say, at least 5 times a night. Like, I can go and turn around 10 seconds later and go back and do it again.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so there may be some issues with your kidneys. That's a possibility. There may be other issues, so we have to figure that out. Again, it could even be metabolic. So you mentioned being overweight, and how long has it taken for that weight to go up? Like, how much have you gained in how much time, kind of thing?
Probably in 2 years, probably. I would say 25 pounds.
Okay, so there was a dramatic shift in your weight, according to our producer here.
It wasn't like gradual weight. It's like all of a sudden, it's true.
Yeah.
So that's why it's curious about it.
Yeah, that's interesting.
My mom has thyroid issues and stuff, so I don't know if that's hereditary.
It often runs in families. Yeah, it does often run in families. In fact, if your mother had thyroid issues when you were born or when you were inside her, gestationally, that could definitely affect you. Yeah, very much so. I could get into all the ways it can affect you.
Yeah.
That's like another show. So, okay. Interesting. So there could be some link to that. You know, metabolism is very much affected by your thyroid.
Okay.
Very much. So another aspect, though, is adrenal function. And I know you've been through a lot of stress with the change you went through professionally and becoming an artist and making it grow and all that sort of thing. Right? Yeah. So that could be affecting you as well. Sounds familiar, no?
Yeah. Stress is a big one. Yeah.
It's a very big one. In fact, the AMA says like 85% of all disease is caused by stress. I'm surprised that came from the AMA, but anyway, isn't that something? So, okay, so do you have any shortness of breath?
No.
And wheezing or anything?
No, I don't.
You're good in that area. Okay.
Actually, I was after this, I was thinking about going running downstairs. So, but
it's an idea. Yeah.
People say if you shouldn't run, you should walk. You know.
Yeah, I think a brisk walk is a better idea.
Yeah.
Running is really hard on your joints, and another thing is that right now, given that you have the excess weight and that you're telling me you're having chest pain, I wouldn't recommend getting too active because it could cause a problem.
Yeah.
You know, so we would want to work on the metabolism, get your weight down, make sure your heart healthy, meaning things like cholesterol, C-reactive protein, which is an indicator of inflammation in your body. Things like that, I'd want to make sure, homocysteine, these kinds of things to make sure that your body is in the right setup to be active like that.
I see.
Okay. All right. So, how's your sleep?
Sleep is, I probably could sleep really good if I did wake up a couple of times a night. I'm not in rate
the urination, that's right.
I'd probably get up at least no exaggeration 4 or 5 times a night. So,
yeah, that's quite a bit. Yeah. So that affects your sleep. And how about after you've slept through the night? You know, you have a cumulative amount of sleep. Is it like 8 hours, 6
longer?
hours?
And Marie teases me about this because I stay up late, but then I get up late. Like, to me, getting up early is 9 o'clock. To you, getting up early is probably 6 in the morning.
That would be really early for me.
But we do stay up late, so 12 or 1.
Yeah.
But I'm tired. I'm always tired.
Always tired. So a lot of fatigue. Yeah. Some of that could be sleep related. It could be, is it tired, fatigue, or is it like lack of energy? Do you have endurance? Can you see yourself through the day, kind of push through the day? You do okay?
I don't have a problem with going through the day. Not too much.
Yeah. Does it seem like a lot of effort to get through the day then?
Sometimes more than sometimes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Had any issues like hair loss or nails breaking or anything like that? Memory issues?
Memory. It'll say my memory. Memory. Sometimes.
So your answer is I don't remember. Right?
Yeah. Exactly. Like, what time is Doc coming? I already told you.
That's funny. Okay, so you do have some memory issues. Is there any brain fog, kind of having difficulty thinking?
No. My vision sometimes in the morning isn't very good. It gradually gets better.
Yeah, so it takes a while to come around.
Yeah.
So you have blurriness in the morning. That's very interesting. There could be a blood sugar regulation issue involved in that. That could be part of it. There's a lot of other possibilities, but that's the first thing that comes to mind. Okay.
Blood sugar, is that too much of something or too little of something? Or should I be eating a certain thing?
I was thinking too much blood sugar, too much sugar in your blood.
Okay.
Yeah. So it may be that you are kind of maybe even pre-diabetic or even diabetic. So it'd be good to test that. Yeah. So really you need to have a bank of tests, and I generally run a lot of blood work and things like that. If I get into the hormonal area, then I'd be doing a lot of saliva testing or some blood, or a lot of blood work, one or the other, or both. And there's a lot of other testing we can do. So, so blood sugar looks like so far, okay, and we really haven't even gotten through much of my assessment because it's usually long enough to do this show and a half again.
Yeah.
That's the kind of assessment I do. It's really in depth. But so far, what I've derived is that you have a metabolic issue, that you may have blood sugar regulation issues. You obviously have sleep issues. You have urination issues. You may have some cognitive issues related to either stress and the effects on a certain part of your brain that's involved in memory, and or it could be related to metabolism and the effects of, say, your thyroid being low functioning, perhaps. And there's a few indicators of that.
I got you.
So it could be along those lines. So tests would include things like thyroid function, blood sugar. I might even look at your liver, your kidneys, things like that, make sure that they're functioning okay, because there's some indication of that. Maybe being some issues, especially with your kidneys and the urination.
I had blood in my urine maybe 3 years ago.
Okay, that's a few years ago.
I get kidney stones.
Oh, you have a history of kidney stones.
Yeah,
Yes.
but I had blood in my urine one time. It was like
And that may be from
3
the
years
stones.
ago. It was really scary. It was weird.
Yeah.
But then it went away.
Yeah. So that may have been stones or silt left from the stones. You
Maybe.
may have broken down
Maybe.
some stones. Yeah.
And I think I did have stones around that time too. So
So that could have been that, or it could have been a UTI.
I haven't had stones in maybe a year now, right, Henry?
Okay, so
So
you had
I
them about a year.
slowed down on the soda a little bit. So
Slow down on the soda a little bit.
yeah.
Okay. So first prescription, no more soda. Yeah. Okay. No more soda. So what sodas do you drink? I say no more. Maybe we can
Ginger ale.
substitute. Ginger ale? Okay, ginger ale is not quite as bad
No.
as, say, Coke and Pepsi. And the way I look at it, the only thing worse than a Coke is a Diet Coke. So any of that stuff is really, really
What about
bad.
regular iced tea? Just regular plain iced tea.
Regular iced tea could exacerbate your condition if some of the pain that you're feeling, the tingling and so on, could be related to uric acid. In fact, the stones could be. Were they dark stones or were they light stones?
They're in a bottle.
Did you ever see them? Oh, you
Yeah,
do have them? Are they dark or are they light?
They're light. I can't remember.
Or on the light side?
No, they're dark.
They're
Oh, they're dark?
Dark.
Okay. So if they're dark, that very much could be related to uric acid levels.
Mhm.
Okay. So it could be uric acid as opposed to oxalates.
And they say stones are from dehydration sometimes too, right?
Well, it certainly makes it more likely for you to have stones, but I wouldn't say it's exactly right from being
But see,
dehydrated.
My brother has stones.
Mhm.
He doesn't drink soda. My mom has stones. She drinks a lot of Diet Coke. My sister had them one time. My little brother hasn't got them. My dad had them. So everybody in my family's had them except my little brother.
Yeah, so you may have kind of a congenital kidney dysfunction that's related to that. It's possible. It could also be because you grew up with a certain kind of diet that is from your family and they eat the same way you do,
Yeah.
and
yeah.
so you end up with the
So
same
that's
disorders.
Yeah, that's true.
Right.
I see that.
So some of these things that we just jump on genetics, they're not necessarily genetics. Some of them are just family patterns. Yeah.
I got you.
You definitely need to talk to your mom about that Diet Coke, though.
Yeah.
Okay. Remember I said the only thing worse than a Coke is
Yeah,
a
the
Diet Coke?
Coke, yeah.
Okay. So you see, there's a lot of things we need to look into. Yeah. But I could give you ideas even separate from doing testing to help.
The one thing about the diabetic thing, probably about 6 years ago, I worked at Haverty's Furniture Store,
Mhm.
and they would say, "Mark, you go to the restroom a lot. You need to get checked for diabetes or whatever." I got checked. I didn't have it.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, but the levels. Another thing about this is most of the time, the interpretations done by conventional docs when they're looking at the blood work are based on, and they may even have a nurse or somebody screening. In other words, looking at the blood work and saying, okay, is there anything bold on there?
Mhm.
Okay, and if there's something bold, then that's what they look for. So quite often, what happens is they're not looking at the level within the normal range. As long as it's normal, they skip it. You know, so even though you may not be diabetic, your sugar level might be elevated to the extent that it's starting to cause issues, even if you're not diabetic. Like you can be pre-diabetic,
right,
which has a few determining factors. A1C is one of them, which is a variability of your blood sugar. Okay, and it's not just the blood sugar level, it's also the variability of it. And that's basically an indicator of insulin resistance. So you could have insulin resistance as well, even if you're not diabetic.
I see. What, change the subject a bit, what causes a B12 deficiency?
Sometimes it's the inability to process the B12 in your gut, which is where a lot of that happens, or created in your gut. It can be a lack of certain probiotics or biology that is not allowing you to create the B12. Now, also it can be diet. This is an issue that a lot of vegetarians face, is B12 deficiency, because they're not eating enough of the foods that provide that. However, a lot of people jump right to beef and all this stuff. That's hogwash. You don't have to eat beef to get B12. Okay. There are a lot of foods that have B12 in them, like spirulina is one of them, for example. Has a lot of B12, blue-green algae, these kinds of foods that a lot of people might say, oh, yuck, you know.
Yeah.
they contain a lot of B12 in them. So there are lots of ways of getting them. Do you eat much beef? Oh, you do? Okay. So that's an issue. Okay. So you're having these inflammatory signs, right? Okay. If you want to cut down inflammation, do you choose the most inflammatory food in your diet? Or do you cut down on that? Right?
Chicken and beef.
Cheese.
You like chicken and beef? Okay. So,
Cheese.
And cheese? Okay. Yeah, cheese is also inflammatory. Dairy foods are inflammatory. Animal proteins are inflammatory in general, so chicken as well. However, the most inflammatory thing you're telling me is the beef. You know, especially if it's standard, hormone, non-free from hormones, not free from, growth hormone, not free from antibiotics and all the other things that the beef gets. Yeah, it's very inflammatory. The free range tend to be less inflammatory because they're eating better, and that passes on to their bodies.
Okay.
Yeah, so I would definitely just knock out the beef for a while and see if things improve for you.
Okay.
That would be the first thing. That one, and also there are other inflammatory foods. Okay, so we're talking about sugar here a lot in this conversation.
Sounds like everything's bad for you, though. I mean,
no, not everything. No, absolutely not. Vegetables. Do you eat vegetables?
A little bit.
A little
Salads.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so I want you to visualize. I know you're a good visualizer. So I want you to visualize a plate, okay? And let's say we take that plate. How much of your plate is vegetables?
Yeah, I missed.
Part of it sometimes. Not all the time.
Part of it sometimes.
Rice. We have rice. All
Rice is not a vegetable. Rice is a starch.
Corn.
Corn is not a vegetable. Corn is
Potatoes.
a starch.
I know that's a starch.
So we're doing starches here.
Yeah.
Okay. So starches are part of your problem too. Okay. Very much sugar. A lot of sugar there. Okay. You're putting a lot of sugar into your body. Okay. So you're doing the meat and potatoes diet is basically what you're doing, which is the most inflammatory way to go. So it's not a wonder that you're feeling inflamed all the time. So you cut out the beef for a while. It doesn't have to be forever.
Right.
And you can throw it in occasionally along the way. But occasionally to me means like maybe once a month.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Okay.
That's a lot.
All right. Maybe she's talked about these things to you before. Sounds like maybe
a little
so.
bit.
Yeah. Okay.
It's not the same, but really, doctor.
Okay. So there's beef and there's the starches. And the starches are basically sugar. So you're putting this huge injection of sugar into your bloodstreams, basically, every time you have starches, especially if they're grain starches. Grains are like 90% sugar, okay? And most of it is glucose, which is the lowest form of sugar. So it really takes very little work for that to turn into sugar in your blood. Okay, as opposed to eating vegetables and fruit, where fruits have, yes, they have other forms of sugar, lower forms of sugar, but they also have fructose, right? They have a lot of fructose. And vegetables have a fair amount of fructose as well. So that slows down the processing of the sugars. And so you end up with less blood sugar, or less of a spike in your blood sugar, much slower.
Let me say this: when you let's say I did have a steak, what if I ran afterwards? Would that burn all that sugar out of what you're talking about? Would that burn it? You know what I mean? Like
I think burn is the operative word, because you're still spiking your blood sugar. And what you're actually doing when you do that is you're reducing the oxygen transfer from your bloodstream to your muscles. So if you run right after doing that, yes, you can. It gives you energy for.
Because people used to say, "Shoot, you can eat whatever you want as long as you exercise."
Yeah, that's baloney.
Yeah.
That's baloney. I don't see baloney as a good meat, by the way. Let's take a little break here.
Okay.
Okay, so you've been listening to A Path to Wellness on rhinoonair.com, WSPF-DB.com. And when we return, we will continue this wonderful conversation. It's really interesting. Getting to know you a little bit. So we'll continue our talk with our artist extraordinaire here, Mark Levesser. You feel like you're being picked on?
A little bit.
Camera's on.
So, if you can do those two things, you'll help a lot. Yeah, you need to eat. Your plate should be mostly vegetables. I'm Dr. Christopher Jackson, PhD, DO in Florida. Practice as a Path to Wellness, as well as the name of the show. And we're sitting here talking to our wonderful artist, Mark Levasseur, about health and some things he's been experiencing and how we might approach it, both from a treatment perspective and also diagnostic perspective in my practice. So, Mark, one of the things you were mentioning, and it just got brought back to mind as I took a bathroom break, was that you're urinating a lot at night. And I was remiss because I didn't ask you about fluid intake. It's kind of silly. So what about that? You're drinking tea, you mentioned.
Well,
right?
I drink tea, not as much as I drink it at lunch. I don't drink it for breakfast or anything. Yeah,
Okay.
But he drinks tea a lot when he does drink.
Okay, how much tea do you drink? Like how many cups would you say?
3.
3 cups?
3.
And how large are these cups?
Like that one.
Like this one, that's not a cup. This is a Trenta from Starbucks. And by the way, I don't use any of their artificial garbage in my drinks, but that's another story. So this is I would say this is what? Probably,
8 ounces.
no, Mark, 8 ounces is down here.
Oh.
So this would be at minimum 24 ounces. So that is at least 3 cups. So if that's one of your cups, that's 3 cups. So now you're looking at 9 or 10 cups.
I'm always thirsty.
You're always thirsty. All right. Do you have a lot of hunger too?
Yeah, I'm hungry right now.
Hunger and thirst. Hunger, thirst, and blurry vision, and weight gain, and energy problems. You know what those all point to? Blood sugar regulation. Yeah. So you really need to be tested for diabetes again.
And one more question, tea and anxiety attacks. Do those two go together?
Tea and anxiety can, is it regular black tea?
So
It's caffeinated tea.
Caffeinated
Iced
iced
tea.
tea, yes. Yeah, definitely. Caffeine can overexcite your adrenal function, which means that fight or flight response, like running into a bear in the woods kind of response. And what do? Do you stand there and fight the bear, or do you run off, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's that fight or flight, and that's your adrenal response. And that adrenal response is essentially stimulated or made more reactive by caffeine intake. Okay, so anxiety can be one of the side effects of that.
Okay.
Anxiety can also be a side effect of poor thyroid function. Okay, so or adrenal function, which takes me back to the caffeine. So, it's probably not the healthiest thing for you to do. I can tell you that I drink a lot of green tea, and the green tea, you don't want to do a lot of it in the evening because that will stimulate even more bathroom runs. Okay, during the day it will as well, but at least if you get it out of the way basically by noon, you have less chance of having the problem at night. Okay, but green tea is a great idea for you because one, it helps with weight loss. Okay, it is so it stimulates the metabolism a little bit, but it also has kind of a unique property in that it doesn't really add a lot to anxiety. Okay, there's another issue here. You have a history of kidney stones. Okay, typically black teas are going to create or help to create more stones. Okay, and there's a couple of reasons, but there are oxalates in there, so you could have the oxalate type of stone, but also it has xanthins or a certain kind of acid that is similar to your body's uric acid.
Right.
That's created. So similar to the way beef creates a lot of urea and uric acid in your body, tea can do that too. Green tea, studies show, doesn't do that. Okay. However, I should mention, and hopefully some of my patients are listening to this, it'll be a good review. the green tea in combination with any tea in combination with any non-herbal tea, let me rephrase that, that has caffeine, in combination with the milks, you know, or the like almond milk, soy milk, coconut milk, all these kinds of things, even dairy, can create oxalate type stones because you're creating salts essentially from that. You know, you can have calcium oxalates derived from having the milk, whatever form, combined with the tea.
Okay.
So that can create stones. So there's still a potential there, but if you have the green tea without the milk product, whatever it may be, there's less potential for having the stones.
Okay.
Okay. Now I said green tea. That's not true as much with black tea because you're going to have both kinds. You're going to have more uric acid stones as well. So, all right.
Okay.
So let's see. So the bathroom runs could be somewhat based on the volume that you're drinking. So I was right to think about that. So what other drinks do you have during the day?
Water.
Water. So how much water are you drinking?
Probably maybe 1 glass, 2 glasses of water a day, maybe.
Okay. So that could be part of why you're thirsty. And what you're drinking is you're drinking teas that are probably diuretics. So you're making yourself go more, urinate more, which dries you out. And then you end up with a need for some water. So you get thirsty, right? Need more water. But you're probably not doing enough. Are you doing a lot of the studio work that Anne-Marie was talking about? You stand around in the studio?
Stand on my feet, yeah.
On your feet all day,
yeah.
Painting. Do you do drawings and paintings? You do mostly paintings.
Mostly painting.
Yeah.
And teaching.
And teaching, yeah. Right.
Little ones, adults,
Yeah.
and disabled students.
Yeah. I've met some of those disabled students.
Have you?
Yeah.
From Creative Club?
Autistic.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. So standing around on your feet could be exacerbating the issue with your feet, right?
Right.
So one, what are you wearing on your feet?
Well, I wasn't wearing comfortable shoes at one time, but these are pretty comfortable. And these shoes that I have now are pretty comfortable.
So at some point, I may want to refer you, or it might be good to refer you to a podiatrist, or even something like the stores that, you know, it's kind of love my feet stores, you know, where they make a custom insert for you.
Right.
Yeah. That might be a good idea. But you should also pay attention to your feet in terms of what you're feeling and get off your feet regularly. And maybe go for a walk. Maybe every hour. How about that? Do you take breaks?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you go for a walk?
No.
Okay. So there you go.
I ride bikes sometimes. But.
Yeah. But that's not going to cause circulation in your feet, you know. And you're not just circulating blood, you're circulating lymph too. And so if the lymph is kind of toxic and carrying a bunch of stuff in it, then that can cause trouble too. So you can do the walking, and something that people may not realize is essentially, you know how we believe we have one heart, right? And, you know, of course there's 4 chambers, but one heart. In actuality, in a way, we have 5 hearts, because we have the heart in our chest, but we also have our feet and our hands, and they act as pumps. So, you know, the blood circulates to the fingertips, and it has to go back, right?
Right.
So we have that circulation through those areas. So if you clasp your hands throughout the day and kind of make a fist and do that repeatedly, maybe 10 times every few hours, that will help with circulation of